welcome to the MyClayCo studio. My name is Carla and today I'm going to be taking you through how to make polymer clay stripes. So stripes can be made a number of different ways, so I'm going to be taking you through 3 different methods today. Let's grab our tools and get into it. The first method I have for you today is the simplest because it uses either just a blade or a cutter, and all we're going to do is we're going to take our colours that we want stripes from, and you can do this with 2 or more colours. It's completely up to you. I've also made complete rainbows with these. I'm just going to stamp out a number of shapes from our cutter, and then we're going to do the same on the other clay. And once you have those clay pieces, all you need to do is pick them up and layer them one on top of the other. Now this is great because you can actually change what thickness you want each of the clays to be. So you can see I've got my green slightly thinner than my blue. You can keep them all the same. You can layer multiple colors within this or just have the 2. It's completely up to you. Now, one thing I will say with this method is you are a little bit limited with the size of the stripe block by your cutter or your clay slab. So if I've got these stripes made, it means that I can only really cut something out from here unless I'm really aligning them up nicely to make sure that I've got multiple stripes. So I'll show you here. I'm just going to flatten this one down. And you can see here it's nice and flattened, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a slice and I've got stripes. And all I would do is I would just keep slicing until I've got however many little slices of stripes I need, and then I can layer them onto a bigger slab. Now if you were going to connect from the edges, as you can see here, the edges don't quite line up. So I would actually trim these edges down. So then you've got nice flat edges on either side. So now when I take a slice, you can see the edges are flat too. So I could align them up. So I'm going to continue slicing the rest of this block and then we can pop it onto a slab. So now you can see I've just got a slab of clay here, and all you have to do is then pop your stripe pieces on here. Now if you did want to try and get them really nicely aligned so that you can use it, you just line them up so that your colours are all together, and let's tile them. Now one of the cons to using this method is that sometimes you'll find that the stripes don't quite align, or you've got a little bit more thinner pieces and thicker pieces in some areas, so it can be quite difficult to get a really nice uniform stripe using this method. So although it is possible to use this for stripes, it's definitely not one that I gravitate towards, but it is one that I can use in a pinch if I just wanted to do a quick little pair of studs. Okay, so as you can see here, I've laid out a few of my pieces, and now the important thing with stripes is if we are rolling this, because you can see that I've got some bits that are thicker than others, if I am rolling this, I do not want to roll this way because that will warp my lines. If you want an organic effect, that is what you do here. If you want really straight stripes, you have to roll in the direction of the stripes. So if I'm rolling here, I'm elongating those stripes, and I'm going to keep them as uniform as possible by rolling in this direction. And as you can see here with this method, you don't quite get the join perfect, but you can always stamp out in areas where you avoid these join lines, just so that you're getting a bit more of a uniform stripe. That is method 1. Let's get on to method 2. The second method I'm going to show you actually utilises an extruder. Now if I'm using simply polymer clay to make stripes, this is probably the one that I gravitate towards the most. I've just got a simple circle extruder head on here, but you can also, to get thicker stripes, use any of these ones as well. So this would give you a flat stripe and this a large flat stripe. So you could always extrude with these and then lay out your flat pieces and then simply roll. I'm just going to do it with the circle so I can show you how to flatten it in 2 different ways to get a standard stripe and an organic stripe. All right, let's get extruding. so I'm going to give you a couple of tips here for when you're making stripes. So tip number one is I like to use a base so that I can lay either my slab pieces, my extruded pieces, whatever it is, onto the base, but you don't have to. If you don't use a base, you can have pieces move a little bit and you need to factor that in. However, it means that you can get stripes on both sides. Now, I don't necessarily need that for my design because I'm just going to be making probably studs today. So I am going to have a nice base just so that the back is going to be really nice and clean, and then the front is going to be stripes. My other tip is if you are going to make a base, it means that you can use up clay that might not have a very nice looking front side, because the back side we're going to be putting a post onto, and this side we're going to be covering with extruded clay. So it doesn't matter so much that I've got these little flecks of blue in it because they're going to be covered. So it's a great way to use up clay that is less than perfect that you might not want to use for other pieces. Okay, so let's now get into making stripes with extruded clay. So really simple, all I'm going to be doing is literally just laying out my clay. Now I've got two slabs next to each other because I'm actually going to do two at a time so I can show you the difference between rolling vertically and horizontally. And all I do is I lightly press it just so it adheres slightly. And because I am doing it across two slabs, it means that I can just keep the one piece here and then trim it and move on to the next one. This also means with this technique that if you did want to do a really, really large stripe slab, this allows you the ability to do it, whereas the other one, you're kind of boxed in with how large the stripe area is by how large you cut the slab. And here I'm just running my fingers along to make sure that I'm really nice and straight there. And then I'm going to go back in with my other color, and we just keep repeating this until we have our stripes laid out. Another tip is if you do pull them together, you can actually do two lines at a time. So it can make it a little bit quicker if you're moving through by using multiple strips of extruded clay at the same time. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my two slabs. I'm just going to trim the edges here just to make sure I haven't got any. You can see my base piece. I'm just trimming to those base pieces to make sure I haven't got any overhang. And this will just help us roll them out a little bit more easily. Okay, so in terms of rolling out extruded clay, if I was to roll my roller directly onto these, I have the potential for the extruded pieces to come up with the roller if they're going to stick to it. So to avoid that, you can actually put a layer of baking paper in between your roller and the clay, and it just means that your clay is not going to adhere and come up with your roller while you're rolling. So I'm going to show horizontal and vertical rolling with this one. So I'll just do one at a time and I'll pop my baking paper on. Now I could just cut out my pieces using cutters without rolling it down, but this extra step of rolling it out just allows those extruded pieces to really stick to that base piece of clay and to stick to each other, and so that we don't have any raised edges. If you did try and just go in straight with a cutter, you might accidentally pull back any of those extruded pieces from the base clay, and then you won't have stripes anymore. So as you can see with my horizontal stripes, because I did roll with the stripes, they are pretty perfect. So this is exactly what you want if you want really beautiful, perfect stripes. I'm now going to show you the other method with the other slab if I was to actually roll not in the direction of the stripes. So let's put our baking paper back on. So instead of rolling with the stripes, we're rolling against it, and I'll show you what happens. And as you can see here, it didn't completely warp our stripes, but if you compare it to our other stripe one, we do have some lengthening of the stripes along the edges. So this can be avoided a little bit more if you're using, say, depth guides or something like that, so that you're not rolling over those edges. But it is easier to avoid if you just roll in the direction of the stripes. So you could still use this one, but it's not going to be as crisp and perfect as our first one. So just a little tip, perfect stripes, you want to roll with the stripes. The last method to create stripes I'm going to show you is by using add-ons. So either transfers, silk screens, or even stencils. If you were to use one of these with paints, mica powders, or simply putting the transfer on, you can get really crisp stripes on your polymer clay. So I'm going to be showing the transfer today, and I'll show you the difference between all of the stripes at the end. So let's get this transfer on. So now you can see our different stripe methods that we went through today. So we had the stacked clay, the extruded clay, and then our add-ons such as transfer. So now I'm just going to turn these into earrings, and then we'll have a look at how they all are as little jewelry pieces. I hope you enjoyed the video today and that it helps you with your stripe creations in future. If you did have any questions about the content today, or if you had your own version of stripes that you make that are different to this, we'd love to hear about it, so drop a comment down below. If you did like the video, we would love for you to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Bye.